Hi, my name is Eric Wiesenauer. I'm going to be talking to you today about Luke chapter 23. We're getting towards the end of the book of Luke, and this really gives the account of Jesus' trials and crucifixion and his death and burial. It really starts in the previous chapter 22, where he is arrested and taken before the Jewish council to be tried before them, and they make up a bunch of lies about him, and then he comes before Pilate. Pilate was governor in the area around Jerusalem, and he was a Roman, and they take him to Pilate, the Jews do, and they accuse him falsely of several things. They say things like, we found this man misleading our nation and forbidding us to give tribute to Caesar, which is false, because just a couple chapters ago, in chapter 20, Jesus, told the Jews to pay taxes to Caesar. It says that they said that he called himself Christ a king, and so Pilate asks him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Now, Jesus never actually calls himself the king of the Jews. He does say he has a kingdom at one point, but it's not of this world. And so he never really uses the phrase king of the Jews. He does use other things to describe himself, son of man, son of God, but not king of the Jews. And so when he's asked this by Pilate, his response is, "You have said so." It's kind of this "you said it, not me" kind of response, where we might say that if we agreed with something but didn't want to speak it ourselves. So he's definitely not disagreeing, but he's not quite giving a straight answer here. And so Pilate really can't find any guilt in him. Sends him to another Roman official named Herod. Now, Herod was a ruler over a different area. So Herod ruled over the region of Galilee, maybe some other places, we don't know, or I don't know. Now, this is a little map of Israel, and Jerusalem down here is the star. Bethlehem is this little dot next to it. That's where Jesus was born. But Jesus actually lived in Nazareth, up here at this dot, in the region of Galilee. And so Jesus is called a Galilean. When he travels down to Jerusalem, when he's crucified ultimately there, he comes before Pilate, but Pilate realizes that Herod is actually the one who would have jurisdiction over Jesus, because Jesus is from Galilee. Herod just happens to be in Jerusalem at the time that this occurs. So Pilate says, well, let's send him over to Herod. And actually, Pilate and Herod, it says, are not friends. They're actually enemies. And so I assume Pilate must have thought, I don't really know what to do with this Jesus. He hasn't really done anything wrong. It's not really my jurisdiction anyway, and I don't really care for Herod. I'm going to send him over to Herod and see what Herod will do. So Herod questions him, and ironically, Herod not only is in Jerusalem, but had also wanted, it says, previously to talk to Jesus, I assume when they were back in Galilee, because he must have heard the things Jesus was doing. Jesus was quite popular, and but never did get a chance to do that. And so here's his opportunity, and it says that he questioned Jesus at some length, but Jesus made no answer. He remained silent. I think Herod here, doesn't get a response. Doesn't really see Jesus as that significant of a person at this point. He's been beaten up. He's been made fun of. And so Herod just joins in, dresses him up, and it says arrayed him in splendid clothing, sent him back to Pilate. So he goes back to Pilate. Something in verse 12 kind of stood out to me. It said, and Herod and Pilate became friends with each other that very day, for before this they had been at enmity with each other. And so, maybe they were political rivals or something, a Democrat and a Republican, like we would think of it today. I don't know, something like that. But for whatever reason, They actually became friends over this situation. Maybe some sort of similar feeling toward Jesus, that he was being wronged, or that he was, maybe they were mocking him, and that brought them together. I don't know what it is, but for some reason they become friends here. Anyway, so then he sends them back to Pilate, and Pilate then goes before the Jews. It's Passover. Pilate can release one of the Jewish prisoners. It's kind of a tradition at the Passover, and he gives the Jews an option, and they choose Barabbas over Jesus, which is kind of crazy that they would do that. Barabbas was a known criminal. Jesus had done nothing wrong, but they chose Barabbas anyway. It's also interesting here that this is really like the third or fourth, almost fourth trial, I guess, that Jesus experiences in really just a few hours, right, from the evening before till now, maybe 12 hours or so. It's not a long time. So this is very swift judgment, and in fact, Pilate doesn't want to kill Jesus or have him sentenced to death, but the crowd really pushes this. And so Pilate says, I have found in him no guilt deserving death. What evil has he done? But the people were urgent, demanding with loud cries that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate decided that their demand should be granted, released the man, Barabbas, who had been thrown in prison, and delivered Jesus to be crucified. So now there's the road to the crucifixion is next, where they take him out. And there's several people along the way. There's a man, Simon of Cyrene, who helps Jesus carry his cross. And then there are some women. Now, there's this interaction between these women who are following Jesus is kind of interesting to me. It says, and following him a great multitude of people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Now this seems like a strange response to me, because he's saying that blessed are women who are unable to or have not had children. And that seems a little strange, because in Psalm 127 it says, children are a blessing. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. And so I do believe that there are reasons why it is a blessing, that these women may not have had children. I think he's referring to the idea that the Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. There's going to be lots of persecution coming, and it would be an agonizing thing for a parent to see their children suffer in that way. And so he's saying, mourn for yourselves, weep for yourselves and for your children, because these awful things are about to happen and take place. It says, in addition to that, there were two criminals who were put to death with Jesus. Now, these two criminals are interesting. They were both guilty of a crime that was punishable by death. Jesus, however, was not. He had done nothing wrong. The first criminal says, Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. So he railed against Jesus, it says, kind of lashing out at him, and he wanted himself to be saved. So he thought, well, if you're the Christ, save me. And had Jesus done that, perhaps this guy would have believed in Jesus. I don't know, followed him. But that's not really the right motivation to be coming to Jesus. We ought to come to Jesus because of who he is, not because of what we could benefit in this life from it. The second criminal confronts that first one. Says, do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. Okay, so he recognized who Jesus was, and he recognized his own sin, his own deserving of punishment, and wasn't trying to get out of it. And he asked Jesus to remember him. He said, "Remember me when you come into your kingdom," referring to the fact that he was accused of being the king of the Jews. And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." So he understood who Jesus was, approached Jesus, and was not trying to get out of his own sufferings, but was acknowledging the fact that he was guilty and deserving of punishment. Okay, now this transitions to the death of Jesus. Okay, and it's interesting because it says that while the sun's light failed and a curtain of the temple was torn in two, then Jesus called out in a loud voice, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And then there's a centurion who saw all this take place, praised God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And so he saw how even the earth responded to Jesus' death. The earth and the sun and the temple, all of these things physically changed dramatically. And he realized that what happened was not right, and that this guy really was innocent, really was who he said he was. And then we look at Jesus' burial, which I think is very interesting, because there's this guy named Joseph from the Jewish town of Arimathea. And this Joseph was a member of the council, the same council that falsely accused Jesus in the previous chapter, and basically pressured Pilate to crucify him. And so Joseph was a member of this council. I assume that Joseph was not in agreement with what was going on. In fact, it says it here. It says, "He was a good and righteous man who had not consented to their decision and action." And he was actually looking for the kingdom of God. So he was searching genuinely for what Jesus was offering, and what Jesus was teaching. And he himself did not agree with what the other members of the council were trying to do. Now, there may have been other dissenters like Joseph. It doesn't say. But obviously people like him were the reason they even had to come up with false accusations to begin with, to try to convince the other members, including Joseph. And so Joseph then goes to Pilate, so he must have had some high standing in there, in Jerusalem, where he's able to just present himself to Pilate, ask for the body of Jesus, and then and Pilate agrees with that and is okay with that. Joseph then takes Jesus' body and puts it in his own tomb, his own grave that he had bought for himself, and gives that up for Jesus. I believe, making a sacrifice and doing something that he felt was right, as a result of the wrongs that were committed. And so, I think it's very interesting, the interaction between the people that are along with Jesus here in this journey. The way that some of them accuse him falsely, they have the wrong opinion of him, just like people today do. Others are seeking him for the wrong motivation. They want what's good for them, and they don't really desire Jesus. And again, something that we see today. And also, people who genuinely sought him out, like the other criminal on the cross who actually recognized who Jesus was and was recognized what he had done. So just a lot of different people along the way, and It's interesting also how Jesus responds to them, how he forgives the people who are persecuting him and punishing him. He doesn't really respond negatively or defend himself while being persecuted and falsely accused of things that he didn't do. He was willing to suffer and love people and forgive people who wronged him, which are all examples that I believe we ought to follow in our lives, because he is, who we're to be looking up to and following. So thanks for listening, and have a great day.